Anywho, welcome to IEEE's lesson on Git and GitHub. What is Git? So, Git is a version control system. When I write code or write a doc or just have a general piece of information to share with people, what's the best means to do it? For instance, I've worked at a job where if I needed to send Python code to one of my coworkers, I had to change the .py into a .txt, and well, that's just kind of goofy. So let's learn a version control system so that I can actually share my files with everyone. And there's a lot more to Git than just file sharing. There's, as I said, version control in that file sharing. Yeah, there's a lot to it. We'll get to it. Here's a funny little meme. Anyways, yeah, why? So with Git, we have the option to have multiple people editing the same repository. So like all the files in one directory at the same time, adding files, editing old files, and you can eventually merge them all back in together really neatly. Sometimes it's a pain and there are merge conflicts, but Git does a really good job of highlighting the merges for you and making that whole process a lot easier, which is why it is by far the superior version control system. So you'll see whenever we get into the demo, anytime you edit a file that's linked to a GitHub repository, it tracks the edits and changes. In my editors and IDEs that I use, all of them have Git plugins. So whenever I go over to the Git tab on VS Code or something, it tells me how many edits I've made, deletions, additions. It just keeps track of all that. So when it comes time to merge or push to my branch, it knows all the differences, and that also helps the whole merging process. If, say, me and a buddy edited the same line of code slightly differently and we try to merge together, has to be resolved in some means, right? Otherwise, we're just going to have broken code. Sophomore year, my older brother was doing black magic on my laptop and accidentally nuked the whole repository I was working on, which pissed me off. But due to the black magic of Git, you can just revert to old versions, or just straight up nuke the branch you're on and pull the last version from GitHub, like the last pushed version. Or you can temporarily cache versions as you edit, or you can cache a version you're on, pull a newer version from Git, and then merge the cached version with the currently pulled version. Which sounds like a headache, and it is, but it's much better than the alternative, believe me. Alright, anatomy of a Git repo. So this little .gitignore thing is exactly what it sounds like. It's for listing out the files you want to ignore. Especially if I'm doing something in JavaScript and I have a billion different libraries that I'm using. I don't want to store all of them in my my GitHub profile, because I think the free version only has 15 gigs or something like that. I don't want to waste 10 gigs with random JavaScript libraries. I want to put those in the gitignore so those don't get pushed whenever I push the rest of my code, and the user will just have to download them themselves. The README is also what it sounds like. It's just a directions.txt basically, and then all of your beautiful, beautiful code. Common commands and terminology. So clone repository. Yeah. So if I were to initialize a new Git repo on my local machine, but I already have a repository. By the way, repo is short for repository. But I already have a repository on GitHub that I want to pull down to my local machine, I would say git clone and then web address. Commit, actually, I think these old slides are missing a command. So whenever I want to push the files on my local machine onto a Git repo, I first have to add all of the files, and then I commit all of the files, which stages them to be pushed, and then I git push. The push command pushes everything onto a GitHub repo. Pulls everything from a GitHub repo onto your local machine. Everything more or less does what it sounds like, although there are important flags and parameters. For instance, if I don't go in and manually set my remote target, that is the GitHub repository that I want to be looking at to push and pull, then I usually have to specify them as command line arguments. So if I want to push my local repository onto a GitHub repository, I would say git push origin master, master being the master branch that I want to work on. Do we cover branches later? Should I talk about them right now? I'll get a little deeper and then talk about them if I don't see them on the slide. Branching. Okay, here we are. Yeah, so branches are multiple different versions of the same content on the same repository. So say I have worker A and worker B working on a code base that's stored on GitHub repo. They're both doing kind of parallel tasks that are independent of each other, but I'm afraid that each one of them editing that code base may break it for the other, so each one wants to work in isolation. So both of them work. Sorry, my Slack's popping off. So I want each of them to be able to work in isolation, make sure that their edits all work together or separately in isolation, and then we merge them together and then make everything play nicely. So the branch concept is that isolation container sort of thing. So worker A would work on worker A's branch, worker B would work on worker B's branch, both of the same repository. Both are different, and this next little graphic kind of explains it. So say worker A would be on the green branch, worker B would be on the purple branch. They make their edits, whatever. Green pushes back to master, makes everything work, gets rid of all the weird errors that pop up. Then worker B would push onto master, same process. Git checkout is how you look at a different branch. So a word of caution, the branch on your local machine is not necessarily the up-to-date branch on the repository. So if I'm worker A and I want to check out what worker B is doing, I can't just check out worker B's branch with this command. I have to, well, first I would check out that branch, and then I would have to pull from the repository to make sure that I have the most up-to-date code. Because otherwise I just have whatever I've pulled last, which isn't necessarily correct. Master is the production. I think you can change that name. I've just never bothered to. And yeah, then it has the merge functionality of squishing the branches together, and hopefully nothing breaks, but it usually does. But that's nice because Git gives you all of the tools to ameliorate that process, whereas usually you're just kind of out on a limb on your own. Yeah, Git mantras. So if I was worker A and I want to check out what worker B is doing, make sure there aren't any overlap issues or weird errors that come up as a result of his code. If I want to test that whole process, that's entirely reliant on him having an up-to-date branch. So he needs to commit early and commit often so that I can pull the most recent edits, make sure everything's playing nicely. Meaningful commit messages. So usually, actually I think, I could be wrong, but I think in order to commit, you actually have to tag a message, or else it just straight up doesn't let you, which is probably good procedure. But the message will show up on GitHub as your latest edit of just a comment describing it. Oh yeah, never commit to master. You should always merge into master. Or for instance, on the ROV team, we have a development branch that is master before master, so we merge into development, get rid of all the errors. So at any given time, we always have a stable master branch. And then once development is stable, we merge that into master. Oh dear, we have a demo. All right, create a GitHub account. Just go to the web address, sign up, select your plan. I already have a GitHub account, so I'm just gonna give you all a minute to get that all set up. I believe the new student plan that they came out with in the spring gives you unlimited private repos, or maybe that's just through ROV, I don't recall. No, because I have my own unlimited private repos. Anywho, you now have private repos, which usually you have to pay for, I think, or at least you did beforehand. Which is cool, because if I'm working on like a bot for stock web scraping and I don't necessarily want anyone else to be able to steal my code, I can just keep it all private to myself. Anywho, yeah, Mac and Linux, you're just good to go from the command line. Windows, you're gonna definitely want to go to that URL, follow all the instructions, or personally, I recommend just getting Bash, Windows subsystem for Linux, WSL. Synonymous with Bash. Bash is just a little Ubuntu kernel that runs inside of Windows. Or use Windows PowerShell. Don't use the default Windows command line. It's just weird and different, and I don't know, it just behaves very differently. Alright, install. I will also not be following along with this because I don't want to mess up my own auth tokens, but yeah, if you pull up PowerShell, Bash, whatever. Oh, my PowerShell is behaving weirdly. Okay, OBS is weird. Yeah, type these in. These are your global auth credentials, so that whenever you try to push or pull, it knows whose Git account they're doing it through. I don't think it even lets you do anything without these credentials typed in. Forking our first repo. So go ahead and navigate to this URL. Is OBS still capturing this on a different tab? It is. Cool. Oh, it is very zoomed in. I do not know how to fix that. Just gonna. All right. Yeah. Anywho, so we're gonna fork it. Yeah. So fork it to your own profile. Give it a second. I should really change my own GitHub name to something more professional now that people are looking at it, but oh well. And now I have my own fork of the branch. So this operates purely in parallel with the original. I can push edits to this one and it should not affect Justin's branch that he set up. It's my own independent fork, which hypothetically I would then merge back into Justin's at a later date. Sort of same idea as branching, but bigger scope, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, go bother Ivan in the Discord. Am I cloning this? I am cloning this. Yeah. I don't even know where the clone button is. I'm just so used to doing this from command line. Honestly, I'm just going to do this on command line. Alright, that means I need to pull up my PowerShell. And OBS makes this behave really weirdly, so hopefully it doesn't this time. Let me add this so that y'all can actually see what I'm doing. Cool. Alright. Let me navigate back to the YouTube so I can actually see what I'm doing. My other monitor. And the instructions would also be good. Yeah, so I'm going to navigate somewhere. Desktop. Oh dear. No, I don't want to do it on my desktop. let's go to documents. Alright, so I'm going to make a new directory. I'll just call it new because I'm lazy. cd into new. I'm going to say git init. So I now have an empty, with no target, local Git repo. Now I need to link them, so I should say git clone, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I don't think I need to set a remote. Go over here, copy the link. And now I have a cloned local copy. So I should be able to say ls. I can now see GitHub train. Cool. Alright, what else am I supposed to do? Is that just it? Okay, that is just it. Alright. Should let me make this a little smaller. Hopefully y'all can see this, because I know my OBS cropping is a bit rough. My first time using it, my apologies. Anywho, so. Nope, that is not what I wanted. Alright. So I'm going to create my own local branch of this repository. Alright. So not only do I have a local copy of the repository, I now have my own branch on that repository. So I don't believe it'll even show up on my GitHub yet. So if I go over here, yeah, I only have my master branch. So the first time I push this branch, it should then be an option under branches on my GitHub page, so I can actively choose between master or new stuff and see the differences of them. Although for the purposes of this, I'm probably just going to push my branch into master because I'm lazy and it's simpler. Oh dear. Alright, I'm just going to do something in Vim. Okay, I don't have Vim on PowerShell. Cool. Alright. I'm just going to do this manually through the GUI. Where's my documents? Documents. Alright, so that's done. So now I have a brand new stuff.txt. Should be totally empty. Doesn't really matter. In order to stage this, I would say git add file name, or is it? Oh yeah, I put it down at the bottom as the note. So I really only want to actually add only one file. So the command that I've memorized is git add period, which just means git add all. Then I say git commit. So the -m flag tells it that I'm just going to type a string as an argument on the command line. So like that. If you don't use the -m flag, it's probably going to pull you into Nano or Vim or whatever is default on your terminal and force you to type it in there. It's just easier to do it on a command line with a string. So yeah. And now we'll get push work. I think I have to specify my remote. Yeah, I do. So I would say git push origin master. Maybe. All right, cool. So this only happened because I didn't manually set my remote. So you see it tells me to push the current branch and set the remote as upstream. So I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's very Googleable, just how to set upstream remote. And a cool thing is it's a little tricky, but you can set upstream and downstream as different remotes. So I can pull from one repository or one fork and then push to a different fork, which is not always relevant, but It was very useful for me like one time. I'm gonna fix my cropping real quick because this is a little gross. Okay, cool, didn't mess up my PowerShell again. Anywho, so if I navigate over here, should just refresh it, right? Ah, yeah, Ivan's right. My laziness bit me in the butt. Origin, new stuff. I was hoping it would just do all that nice merging for me. It didn't. Alright, so now I have brand new branch with stuff.txt. Sick. Thank you, Ivan. Shout out, my boy. Kind of already did this, didn't we? Oh yeah, another super useful command is git status. So git status, nothing to commit. So if I say, here, I'll just show y'all real quick because I think that this command is super handy. Documents, where's new? New, I'm illiterate, my apologies. All right, I'm gonna add another file. Oop. All right, another file added. So let's make sure. All right, so I have more stuff.txt now. So if I say git status, this is not currently tracked on the GitHub repo. It's only on my local repo, or my local clone of the repo, I suppose is more succinct. But yeah, so git status, whenever weird things are happening, it's not behaving like you anticipate it should, git status every time. Or honestly, before you do any git operation, just git status. Make it a habit. Merge complete test code master. All right. Did I do everything on this slide? Okay, I guess I was ahead of myself. Oops. All right, so if I say git branch, it should tell me I'm on new stuff, right? I'm not on master. I am in fact on new stuff. So I go to git checkout. Oh, first, actually, I think it's gonna break because I have an untracked change. So I'm gonna say git add. Just make sure nothing yells at me. Oh, yeah. Was it? Is it new or new stuff? I think it's new stuff. Should really come up with better names, but old habits die hard, right? All right. So I'm gonna say git branch, so I can see all my branches. Now I'm going to go to the other branch, so git checkout master, and keep in mind this is my local copy. If say Ivan had made a change on his local copy of master and then pushed it to master, I don't have it yet. I would have to say git status, which is why anytime you do anything new on git status. So if that were the case, I would see I have untracked changes, and I would need to git pull. So now that I'm on master, git merge. Yeah, anywho, new stuff. All right. So that was absurdly pain-free, only because there were new additions. There were no edits to pre-existing files. Usually when you edit a pre-existing file, it will give you some kind of it won't error out. It will make the changes, and then usually, actually, I don't know if it's just my personal VS Code plugin or if that's just how Git treats it. It'll have both edits there for you if it doesn't intelligently know how to select one to replace the other, or if they should lay in parallel, and it'll like mark them with pluses and minuses, and tell you to select which edit you want. So Yeah, so I guess that's what it's highlighting down here. So if there were conflicts, and that's what it'll tell you. It doesn't tell you that there's an error because there isn't an error. Git's doing everything properly, but there will be a merge conflict in that file. So also everyone should be using an editor IDE with plugins, and usually it will make your life a lot easier, but this is the manual way to do it. You just go and manually fix the merge conflict and you're good to go. Yeah, also everyone should at least have a passing knowledge of how to use Vim or Nano, are the most common two terminal editor things. You don't have to be an expert by any means, but just know vaguely how to use it. It's useful for this sort of thing. I don't know why it didn't force me to use a merge message. I guess you don't need one if there isn't a conflict, but same idea as commit messages. Also, it's usually just easier to use the -m flag and provide the string right there on the command line, just pain-free. Because personally, I hate Nano, and on my Linux machine, Nano is somehow my default editor, and I hate it, so why wouldn't I do it on command line? But yeah, so let's push this stuff back onto master. So keep in mind, all these edits are now on my local copy of master. I don't believe that they will be on this master. Yeah, see, they aren't. Alright, git push origin master. Alright, so master should now be updated with the new files. And it is. Sick. God, this is trippy watching myself, listening to myself on a huge delay. Anyways, yeah, so git ignore, really useful if you're using large libraries that are just obnoxious and take up obnoxious amounts of space. Usually for projects like that, I was going to use Flutter as an example, but that's kind of niche. If you're doing anything in Node, there's a file that has all of your packages in it. If you're doing anything in Python, if you're working in a virtual environment, you can use the command pip freeze and then use the little rightwards caret to redirect that into a file. So usually everyone just says pip freeze caret requirements.txt, and then that little txt has all of the libraries that you need to run whatever code you're using. So then I can add to the git ignore all of those libraries, which in Python I guess isn't a concern, but hypothetically, then the next person pulls it for the first time and then pip install from requirement.txt. Pull requests. So pull requests. Discord link for this. Oh, never mind. That isn't for me. GitHub pull requests are just to so for instance, on ROV, as the software lead, I want to make sure that my members can't just willy-nilly push stuff onto master and mess up our stable branch, right? So I want there to be credentials associated with only a couple people are allowed to do that, and then everyone else, it should just straight up deny them. So instead they have to submit pull requests, whereas they have free reign to merge stuff into development. GitHub GUI, is that different from the CLI? Do they have their own special CLI GUI? I don't know. I use their website in the terminal. It's all I really ever need. It's a really lightweight tool. If there is an extra GUI, I don't know of it and haven't bothered to use it. .git, so alright, well that works on Linux. I don't know the Windows equivalent. Anyways, Yeah, so if I were on Linux and I said ls-a, that lists all directories. So usually you can only see files in also in the GUI. If I pull up my little file explorer thing here, you would only be able to see files that are not prepended with a dot. So if I prepend a file with a dot, it just everything is coded to ignore it because they're hidden files. So that .git is whenever I set my remote. Is this for me? No, this isn't for me. I should ignore it. Whenever I set my remote, that command is actually going into my .dxt or .git and editing it and changing a setting in there. For people that use Linux more, your bash rc or your .bash rc rather runs a set of macros or commands that you program into there at terminal startup, which is really useful for setting dir. Oh no, I haven't. But this is PowerShell. Wait, is it on? Isn't dir the same thing as cd on Windows? Except I'm in PowerShell, so it's Linux E, but not fully Linux command. I don't know. It's been a minute since I've used my Windows machine. Like this is a 2-second Google question. Anyways, so yeah, if I were just in my root directory, I wouldn't normally be able to see my .bashrc, but if I say ls-a, it pops up so I can actually edit it, or so I can actually see that it exists. So then I can edit it. You can always edit it. If I had vim on here, I would be able to say vim.git, but apparently I don't. Do I have nano? God, I hate nano. No, I don't. All right. Cool, I hate nano. Using Git with IDEs. Yeah. Actually, again, I haven't used my Windows machine, so I don't know that it's set up with my IDEs on here. But it's really useful. Really? Okay. If Ivan says it, I'll believe it. Oh, do I need to back out one more? Am I crazy? Shouldn't it be here? It should be in the top level directory, right? I don't know. I might be losing it. It's in the top level directory usually. Oh, yep. See, my tab auto completion caught it, even though it's not popping up. That's funny. But yeah, you see the .git file, or is it a folder? I guess it's, I don't know. Anywho, not terribly important. You probably hidden files are hidden files for a reason. The normal standard user doesn't have any reason to go in there and mess with the settings, and if you mess with the settings, it can usually break a lot of things. So unless you go onto Stack Overflow and you have an example of what exactly it should look like and what exactly edit you're trying to make, probably just stay away from it, in all honesty. Git with IDEs, yeah, it's super helpful. It whenever I have a merge conflict, whenever I'm trying to merge stuff back into development, and of course, whenever I do, there will be like 10 different conflicts and 10 different files. It points them all out for me. It highlights them in different colors. The exact lines of code that conflict are surrounded by long lines of pluses and minuses, so I know exactly where they are. And there's even a little button to say like choose this one, and it immediately deletes the one I don't want in there. Just would absolutely recommend. Your GitHub calendar and stats. So if I go to Insight, it's under Insights, right? See my contributors, commits. Yeah, just all these nice little stats. Which is really cool if you're a project manager. If I'm managing a team of 15 people and I have a feeling that, one dude just absolutely is not contributing, I can just pull up that push frequency chart and see, oh, he hasn't pushed anything in 6 months. He's probably not doing anything at all. Travicia. I don't know. Ivan, you know this one? I haven't had a reason to it. But yeah, there's a ton of other extra stuff built on top of Git. It's really lightweight. There's really no reason that everyone ever shouldn't be using it. The only times you're going to run into companies that don't use it is if the company is super old. I know the company my brother just left used some monstrosity that wasn't Git, and every time you had to do a merge, it was an absolute nightmare because it wouldn't tell you where it was, what lines of code caused the merge conflict, and it was just horrible. But they used that system because they'd been using it for 30 years. Any more modern company that's been started up in the last decade and a half should use Git, and the vast majority of companies besides have already adopted it. Final questions and help. Alright, I guess I'm going to go sit in the Discord with Ivan and whoever else and answer questions. Actually, do I even have a link? I know I have it somewhere. Oh, I do. Imagine that. Oh dear. Where's Angela? Alright. Anything else I should go back over? I mean, this is scheduled it for 2 hours. Git is so incredibly simple. It didn't even take 1 hour. So while I'm happy to leave early and go start making dinner, I'm also happy to stay here as long as y'all want. What a catch-22. That's funny. Okay. Come on, buddy. Yeah, I'm in the process of sharing it. Oh, fool that I am, I'm using Discord on my other machine. Why am I like this? Incorporate a Git plugin for Notepad++. Also, well, first off, I would strongly recommend you use literally anything other than Notepad++. Notepad++ is like one step above coding in Microsoft Word. Yeah, I would, yeah, Ivan's right. I would highly recommend downloading VS Code, which is notably different from VS. VS standing for Visual Studio. Visual Studio is very different from VS Code. Just two very different things. Use VS Code. Visual Studio is an absolute monolith, and unless you're doing crazy things with massive code bases, you really don't have any need, and also I think you have to pay an extraordinary amount of money for it. Also, it just okay, yeah. Also, the community behind VS Code is so massive. There's a plugin for everything. It's great. Whenever I need to SSH, if I ever need to SSH into my senior design website to update it, there's an SSH plugin, so I don't have to do gross things on the command line. Oh, I suppose I can only do those because I'm on Linux. So usually, if I'm just on my Linux machine, I would have to go to my command line and manually SSH in, and then all I have is my little terminal. And I can only open one file at a time, and the second I open a file, I can't see my file tree anymore. It's just obnoxious. Whereas if I install the SSH plugin for VS Code, I just pops up with a little screen. I type in my SSH target, my password, and then boom, I have the whole thing in the editor. I can open a billion tabs at once if I want, edit all of them, save them. The second I save them, they're pushed across that SSH connection, saved on the hosting server. It's just, it makes your productivity way better. Yeah, listen to Ivan. Ivan knows all. All right, I'll give it an extra 5 minutes or so for people to ask questions before I close down the stream, and I'll be checking Discord for the next hour or so, making sure I don't miss any stragglers. Also, Ivan and I are saying these things having done them ourselves. High-level editors and IDEs exist for very good reasons. They make you way more productive. You can do more way faster. It's just better. Old stuff like Vim and Emacs came out, I don't even know when, decades and decades ago. They were amazing at the time, but well, it is now decades and decades in the future. Use the tools available to you. Alright, well, it is now 6:50. I don't see anyone still typing in chat. I will continue to monitor the Discord with Ivan until the time limit, and then after that I'll just periodically, I'll probably check in tomorrow or something as well to make sure I don't miss any stragglers. But I'll go ahead and close the stream now because OBS makes my fan sound like my laptop's about to take off. Thanks for joining us. We're going to continue to have more lessons throughout the semester. on a lot of other various topics. I think I'm only teaching one other class. I don't recall. Anywho, yeah, thanks for joining us.